Wait, hold on.
Blast off.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the November 6, 2017 City Council Work Session. We have a few items on the agenda tonight. So first up will be Laura Soper. Come on up. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
So what we have is a very standard budget transfer. We've sold nearly $1,000 worth of merchandise from the visitor center since July 1st. So we're just looking to put that back into our marketing fund so that we can utilize it this fiscal year.
Okay. Any questions?
Sure. No.
Comments? Consensus?
Yes.
Okay, we're moving on. That was easy. If they're all that easy, we'll be out of here at 7 more minutes, but I don't think it's gonna be that easy. Next on the agenda is discussion about 531 West Isabella. Mr. Stevenson, it's great to see you.
He's back.
He's,
He's back. Good afternoon, everyone.
good afternoon.
So I think council considered this request in closed session originally, and since we have for your consideration today a resolution that would authorize the mayor to enter into a contract with the property owner at 531 West Isabella. We're looking to acquire this property so we can expand the footprint at the Department of Field Operations facility, as you know, is located on Lake Street. Mr. Tillman, I would defer to Mr. Tillman on any and all contract language that the council might have.
Okay,
Otherwise, we'd be looking to bring this to legislative session for approval.
we're ready to go. Everything's okay?
Yeah, as far as I know, they're certifying title on this one, so, which was, saved us having to look it up. And I think
Oh.
I've seen the certificate. I think so.
I've not seen it.
I can't
I know
remember.
that.
I'll make sure, because this resolution says that it's subject to being a good title, so I'll make sure we're satisfied with that.
Okay.
The only thing I would recommend, just in case something comes up in the future, is under the resolution where it says contained in the attached contract of sale, I would say, or such other terms as approved by the city solicitor, just in case we need to, change a sentence or two, we won't have to
What
come
line
back
is
here.
that? I'm sorry.
That would be right there in line 28.
28. Gotcha.
The way it's worded now, it would have to be done with exactly these terms, but you never know. There might be some other little thing that comes up and we want to change something.
Okay, so you're gonna add
We
that
would-
line?
Right. I would just recommend that we add that, so we know if something comes up, we can fix it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
No.
Thank you.
We're good to go?
I think I have the next one as well. I think.
Yes, you do. This one may take a little longer.
Okay, so what council is being asked to consider here is a statutory amendment. It's come to my attention that from time to time, in particular, third-party contractors are placing snow and ice from private property onto public streets. This creates a safety hazard for pedestrians, motorists, in particular emergency responders. So we need some leverage to be able to try and overcome this problem. The language changes to Chapter 12 would afford us the opportunity to do that, and a penalty for violation of the statute. So what we were literally dealing with last year from time to time were contractors that were removing property from parking lots, for example, and placing those contents in the street.
So does this also apply to homeowners?
It would, the way it's written, what it would allow us to do is, if somebody, the code is clear on expectation with regard to snow and ice removal, those things should be placed behind the sidewalk. Oftentimes we'll go through with plowing and salting operations, and then the property owner will come right behind us and blow or shovel snow back into the road, and it does create a hazard. Really, in this case, with regard to private property or residential property in particular, it would just be an opportunity for us to stop and say, hey, this is not permitted. There's a penalty for violation. we'd ask you not to do that, as opposed to stopping and making that request and being summarily dismissed and, told where we can drive off to, or whatever the case may be. So, but in particular, this is leverage for violation for snow removal from commercial property.
That makes sense. Questions, comments?
In 6 years, I had 3 major snowstorms. And I'll never get the hair back that I lost during those particular times. It would be helpful if you could find a way on our website, or at least through us or through directives or communications from the mayor, a gentle paragraph way of saying, this is what we do, but when we come through and put it on here, because you know what you're gonna get. You're gonna get the converse.
Yes.
You're gonna get the inverse. You're gonna get blanked out is what you're gonna get. That's what, we need to figure out a way to gently say, yes, there are times when we do put it because of the plows and because of the de-icing on your property. But you are correct. When I am out doing mine and next door and Susan's, up the street and a couple of the elderly folks, there is sometimes it's easier to push it right out in there. And we have to be reminded over and over again that it's got to go the other way. So if you can find a way to do that, bless you for being in charge of snow removal.
Yeah, that's gonna be there, because sometimes people do shovel for sidewalk, and they clear the driveway out, and you come back out after the plows have come through, and it's all back there.
Back in the same spot.
Yeah, more definitely has to be done with regard to public education. Obviously the snow has to go somewhere. Years past, it was always face of curb to face of curb. And if the sidewalk is right there, it's got to pile up somewhere. So we've been trying to stay away from face of curb a little bit to allow property owners the opportunity to clear their sidewalk and not push it back up. The biggest frustration we have is the curb cuts. The snow's got to go somewhere, so we would apologize in advance. That 12 feet or so that represents your curb cut, if you could clean it. Ideally, if you could wait until the snow stops falling and we've finished our operations, that would be the best opportunity. But absolutely, we'll try to do a better job of informing the public.
I think the other thing while you're doing that, also a reminder as to what the limits are or the levels are where the action starts. Because I think people think it snows. Well, I know in my neighborhood they do.
Right.
Until I told them that there's depth,
4 inches.
4 inches that
Residential.
we have to get to before any action is taken. And I think that just again, a gentle reminder, if anticipation of the storm would certainly help
Okay.
on the website. But I understand what you're bringing forward. Any other questions or comments?
Just one, Mr. President.
Go right ahead.
When we initially reviewed this and worked on it, the section that's in there, the 12.10.020, is the section that actually says what goes in the notice, if you read that very carefully. And so we're gonna need to add, basically repeating that same language that's underlined about the amount of the fine. We need to repeat that in a separate sentence stating that there will be such a fine.
Okay.
Okay, I caught that on my second read today, that we had just overlooked that, so we'll make sure that
And
gets
that's
stuck
the
in.
language in 71?
That is the language in
72
line
and
71 to 73. The way it's
Gotcha.
worded now, it's what's in the notice, but we're gonna add another sentence stating that's what the fine is as well, because that's a new fine.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Any other comments or questions? Do we have consensus to move this forward?
Yes.
Mr. Arden? Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good one. Next up, we have is the chief here?
She's across the hall.
She's across the hall. Okay, we'll come back to the chief. Next up then, we're a little early. Merritt Mill Townhouses. Amanda? Good afternoon. How are you?
I'd like to invite the Penrose Properties developers to the table as well.
Absolutely.
We can bring up chairs. So we're going to present a modification request to the annexation agreement, and this is in advance of it going to Planning Commission. We want to get your preliminary feedback first. So we'll give them just a minute to get started.
Okay.
So, this property was annexed in 2014, and as part of that, there was an agreement that was drafted and signed by the council, and a plan, a concept plan, that was part of that agreement. And since that, 2014, a different developer is involved, and they have changed the layout of the plan. The density is slightly different, and the product is a slightly different product. It was townhouses originally. And these are what they called stacked townhouses. And because of, that's considered a substantial change, so that requires it to go back to the Planning Commission for a public hearing, and then also that recommendation will come back to
Correct.
you as a public hearing. But before we started that process, we thought it would be best to introduce this to you all, so that you're aware of it. And so this is Patrick Stewart, he's with Penrose Properties, and he will walk you through the changes.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Amanda. Nice to meet you in person. Thanks, everyone, for your time. Good evening. As Ann mentioned, my name is Patrick Stewart. I'm with Penrose. We are a multifamily developer and manager. Primarily, we focus in affordable housing. We're really active in the Mid-Atlantic, have been around for about 35, 40 years, have established a long track record of what we think are really high-quality developments. And I just want to note that when we come into a community, and this is actually our second project in this area, we're here for the long term, and that's a commitment that we feel is very important to make. I want to sort of walk through our proposed development quickly. I also want to note that here in the audience is Don Bibb, who is the Executive Director of Wicomico County Housing Authority. Don is partnering with Penrose on this project. It's something we're very excited about, and I just want to say briefly, we're very excited about working in this jurisdiction again because everybody has been terrific to work with. And I'm not just buttering you all up, I swear. So as Ann noted, we came across this property last summer, and noted that it was subject to an annexation agreement. And what we've been trying to do as we go through the process is look at ways that we think we can improve on it while adhering to certain requirements in the annexation agreement to the extent that we can do that. We are proposing some changes. We think that the site plan we're proposing is an improvement, actually. It is different. So we're going to start to walk through that. I also want to introduce a couple team members. Keith Sullivan is the architect with Marks Thomas Architects. Steve Shimoniak is KCW Engineering. So they can answer questions when we get to that point. What's the best way to do this? I don't want to get away from the microphone, but we have the boards up. I guess first of all, to orient folks, we're talking about the 11-acre approximately parcel known as the Smith Estate on Merritt Mill Road. Trying to angle this so I can do both at the same time. So we have some renderings up. On the left is the proposed site plan. I think in your informational packet was a snapshot of the original concept plan that was in the annexation.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you had
Yes.
one that size.
Yes, it was,
Not that size. It's in
Yeah,
the
I know it
packet,
is.
yeah. We didn't print out a full-size board, but what was in the annexation agreement actually filled the entire property with
Yeah.
the development. That's one of the biggest changes that I'm sure Patrick's about to address.
Right, thank you.
Is this
So-
this one?
Yes, that's
Exactly, yeah,
correct.
right.
We have a 11 by 17, if that's helpful.
So on the board, we've kind of zoomed in on the proposed development. What we're not showing is that basically the back half of the site's approximately 4 or 5 acres. It's going to be left over as open space. There are a couple kind of reasons for that. One is that we're trying to approach it from a construction standpoint, from a more efficient perspective, and trying to leave open space. We also have stormwater management requirements to deal with. But we think what we've come up with is more compact, it's walkable, it's kind of developed along traditional neighborhood design principles. And again, we still think we're able to do it in a way that kind of meets the overarching goals of what was in the annexation agreement, and what the city was trying to accomplish with that. We think we've come up with a plan that really creates a sense of place, a sense of a neighborhood, creates opportunities for walking within the site, et cetera. And so just to give you kind of an overview of the program, so as Ann also mentioned, we're proposing 75 units. The annexation agreement had called for a maximum of, I think it was 72 units.
72 units.
So we're seeking a little bit of relief on that. I think the underlying zoning would have allowed us to go up to 8 or 10 units an acre. So from 72 to 75, we're hoping that that's something the city can consider. But I guess taking a step back, what we're trying to achieve with this project is construction of 75 units of rental housing, 67 of which will be affordable, and 8 of them will be market rate. The project is, we believe, going to deliver much needed affordable housing to the city. It's serving incomes up to 60% area median income. For reference, that's for a household of 4 is about $41,000 a year. So that's a lot of people. That's, you know, potentially teachers, city employees, Purdue employees, folks like that. We think there's a strong need for that, and we think we're doing it in a way that, again, really delivers a benefit and an asset to the city at the end of the day. So you'll see it, it's comprised of 8 buildings, 8 residential buildings, 1 community building, which is about 2,500 square feet, has on-site management, a multi-purpose room, for things like, you know, kids' birthday parties and events and meetings and things like that, as well as a small fitness room. In terms of the architecture, you can get a snapshot of what the buildings look like. We think it's kind of a nice combination between a townhouse and more of a conventional apartment building. So it's a little bit more dense, but really retains that feel of a townhouse. Each unit has its own entrance. And in some cases, the units are stacked so that you'll have a unit that enters on the ground floor, you'll have a unit next to it that enters, walks up a flight of stairs, there's a 2-story unit, et
It's like
cetera.
the Booth Street.
Yes.
It's similar. It's
Similar.
actually, it's a very similar sort of architectural concept that we were very proud of at the end of the day, and we thought was well received, and so looked at kind of deploying that again. One thing to note is if you see from the site plan, the buildings are kind of set back from Merritt Mill Road. We thought that was an important move, given that there are single-family homes right across from Merritt Mill. What we're doing is a little bit more dense, so we kind of wanted to create a little bit of a buffer there. And Steve, what was our magic number? 166 trees. I just wanted to throw that out there because I think that's a big benefit. What we're doing is, even though it is a greenfield development, we think at the end of the day, we're ending up with a real asset in that sense. There's going to be a lot of greenery, landscape, trees. The development is also green, will be certified under, we're proposing, I should say, to certified under the National Green Building Standard, and it also will be certified under Energy Star's New Homes program. So very green. I think that kind of covers the bases. I know I'm throwing a lot of information out there. I do want to leave some time for questions that any of you may have.
I did want to note there were a couple of things required in the annexation agreement, like a connecting bike path, which they are providing. Also, the possibility to connect the road to the adjacent properties, which they are providing.
Right.
So it's really the change in housing type and the minor modification in density are the main changes to the annexation agreement. We certainly do support the increase in open space, so that is something we're happy to see with the new plan.
And a decrease in impervious surface. So,
What is the decrease approximately? Do we know roughly?
well, half of the site won't be developed, so they're condensing the development into
Okay.
not quite half, but
Okay. Questions?
Where is the connecting road to the other property?
Let's see. I think I'll be showing up in a little bit. More is it here? So, in
It's
our
on the
planning commission
plans that
submission,
were
it's detailed a little more clearly. And it's actually something that we're kind of hoping to talk through with the planning commission, because I believe the previous site plan concept had it over here. We're not 100% sure if there's a development sort of like on the books for that property to the west, and whether showing a hard and fast connection in a specific place is the right way to go. If we should construct it now, we propose the concept of possibly a right-of-way easement that would allow, sort of
Sure.
reserving the space for the future if in fact something does happen on this property. But actually, as I look at
Is
this,
that on the west or the
this
east?
is noted as potential future road connection.
And I think the planning commission would entertain that
Yeah.
favorably. I think that's something that, that was part of the annexation agreement in the event that that property was developed, that there will be some connectivity. There aren't plans
Right.
currently, but it is a parcel that's
Right.
got potential.
Right, okay. So that could be a location right there, which is very, I think, sort of
It's on the east side.
where it had been shown previously.
Not the existing development on the east side, the vacant
No,
property.
Where the
Okay.
connector, the
I
road would
believe-
be.
It was going to be, wasn't it connecting to the vacant parcel on
Yes.
the west side?
The vacant,
Okay.
To the vacant parcel,
Okay,
Yes.
to this parcel.
yeah, okay.
Does, do we have a traffic study yet? And I only ask that because if you go up Merivale and trying to get onto Old Ocean City Road, or you turn to go to the food line and try and get into the food line, it is. It's just, that Dunkin' Donuts is on the way to Willers Elementary School every morning, so I live that turn.
And this
Right.
and this thing.
I live that turn, and then you gotta live trying to get out of it as well, so
So I don't have an answer for you.
okay.
I don't know if that was required as part of the,
I think it's written here.
for the first annexation agreement. I would think that it is, but I don't know that the planning commission is going to ask them to revisit that.
They are,
They are. Okay, that's fine.
because I'm on it, so.
Okay, all right.
Undergo a traffic study if
And
that's something the
that-
city wants to see.
That would lead to some questions about getting in and getting out. That would lead to, you know these questions because of, Dagsboro Road, those up there. Do we have any idea how many with affordable, and I'd like to have a larger discussion with us about how many of these we are approving and when we may meet a threshold for it if possible, and of course the larger discussion about what happens to the other housing stock when more of this is built. But if there are 75 units, how many students are expected to affect? I don't know if the planning commission asks this, so I have to. How many students does that affect? I assume Beaver Run or East Salisbury, one or the other.
The Board of Education will receive plans and will evaluate. They'll provide comments for the planning commission prior to the meeting.
Okay, that doesn't answer my question. I apologize.
Well,
Okay, we don't know yet.
we don't know yet, but they know that the plans are coming and they will be reviewing them.
You said something
So-
about the teachers, Purdue employees, and city employees. Was that the 67 affordable or the 8 market rate?
I guess I was just sort of imagining who were some of the people at that approximate income level. I will be frank with you, I don't know specifically which job descriptions would have, that salary level, but just sort of for, as an example.
Well, can I just implore you, Mr. Heath, when you go to represent us on the planning commission to push these questions and ask these questions? This is, as I've said to you, and we don't have anything yet, the Walmart that we get is the Walmart that we get. And we need to get better, we need to get better things. So, and it seems that once it's done at the planning commission, it's supposedly done. So this is our chance to try and ask staff to put things in. And looking at that, I'm not exactly sure where they're walking to. This is basically a rural area 15 years ago, so I'm not sure where they're walking to unless they can walk to the food lion.
Are you referring to the path to the back of the
Right.
site? That's actually, yeah, I mean, that's really the one spot where that would lead to, and hopefully, I mean, that maybe that leads to slight reduction in traffic, at least originating from this development, if people can actually walk to the grocery store. But in terms of the internal pathways, the hope is that at least, to get around the neighborhood, they can.
Well, I sort of have to support it because I signed the last one, so. I just scrolled down and saw a familiar signature there.
What's the,
So-
what's the ultimate, you have like a small vision for the open space, other than it just being an open field, or are we gonna have like a small park, or
Yeah, you took the
walking
words out of my
path?
mouth.
It's a
or
good
something
question.
along-
We don't have any specific ideas for that. I think what we're starting to think about is sort of things in the way of programming that we could put there. I don't think, we don't really have an idea of constructing anything per se as in the way of a park or anything like that. I do want to note that the little green square in the center of the property will have play equipment, so that'll function as sort of a tot lot.
Okay.
In the back of the site, we've thrown out the concept of possibly outdoor exercise stations, amenities that are kind of integrated into a landscape design. Possibly there's space for programming around, the environment, ecology, things like that, partnerships with universities, community gardens, things like that. These are just ideas that we're floating out there. So any suggestions we're open to.
I would ask the staff, Julia, if you could get with the mayor and see what, if you have any
What we
suggestions.
can extract out of it. That's
Well,
what
I'm
you're doing.
We can
Trying
get
to be-
creative.
Well,
Yeah.
could I
No,
ask a question?
I think that,
Because in the end, there is not going to be a homeowners association. Now, this is going to be completely rental, correct?
Correct.
All right, so this will be something that has to be policed, that has to be approached differently. We've seen it over and over and over again in our history, and we need to make sure that we're extracting the best possible deal we can. There's 75 more people that have to be in a sector with no new police officer. We're not extracting those things out of developers anymore. Other places around the country are extracting firehouses, schools, public buildings. We're gonna get a park. So
Yeah,
let's
that's-
see if we can get the nicest possible park we can get in this plan.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
what
I
I'm
do like
saying.
The idea of compacting the footprint and leaving the open space there.
I do
I
too.
think that's, you don't see that a lot from developers thinking from that perspective. So I do appreciate that from my perspective.
and in the future, it may become more and more difficult because they're talking in the legislature right now about a 1-for-1, which is very scary. Right now, we're at 25%, one quarter. Yeah, that when you talk about growth areas, that puts a tremendous amount of pressure. So,
And we're good with the pump stations and everything out there with another big one? out
Yes,
there?
yes,
Okay.
we are. We,
All you have to say is yes.
that's,
Okay.
the upgrade to Parkside helped that tremendously.
Excellent.
yeah, that's great. And we do have another shot. I mean, it has to, if it does clear, if and when it clears planning, it's got to come back to us.
That's
Anyway.
correct.
Was there a particular reason, and this is just if you can tell me or not, why it's switched over from, Merritt Mill itself is a little bit of homeowner, a little bit of renter, or, and then the different types, why this one didn't go? It was just that developer pulled out of the property?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Excellent, thank you.
We do have someone who would like to make a comment. Mamil Parilla, would you come up to the podium?
Can I just say, I can speak out loud.
You better throw it then.
So I'm a homeowner in the condominium area, so, I can visualize where the new development will be. So it's close to the townhomes, correct? So we're in the back. No, you were saying earlier that, you will be having a connecting street, and you were pointing over here, and I couldn't see, so
Okay.
can you,
Well, I see what you're asking. So
so
you
this is
live
the
here.
townhomes,
Okay.
this is the condominium.
So what they were referring to is originally, there was a concept plan that called for a street to be built here in case there was ever a future development here. And they were asking where that was
So
gonna
a
go.
street
we're-
that goes this
well,
way,
So
or
that
just,
if you were in here, you could connect, you could.
but
you
not-
could drive over
not
here,
through the properties in the
over
back.
here.
But not into yours.
okay.
Right.
And then secondly, sorry, just one question. There, this is just on, high thought. our community needs to have a better homeowners association. We actually didn't know about this meeting today until I just learned from my neighbor. So, we need to work on that. But a few of us have talked to each other, and a few of us have concerns, because right as it is, we already have foot traffic to Food Line. I mean, cause, so you have your this is Merritt Mill, you have your townhomes, and then in the back, you have your condominiums, and then in the back, through the woods, you have, that Food Lion Center, Dollar General, those. And there's already foot traffic from, not from the townhome and condominium residents, but we even have foot traffic from across the street. And I guess it wouldn't be a concern of mine if I lived on the second and third floor. I don't see it, but unfortunately I live on the first floor, and I only work 2 days in a week, so I can see what's happening on the ground, and there is foot traffic. And then sometime in April, there was some vandalism that happened in one of the buildings. So, to cut it short, I just have some concern that there will be more foot traffic, of public foot traffic, that will increase the risk of, it feels like it will be less safe. And I understand it's good that it's affordable housing for teachers, for Purdue employees, and that's so good. It's just, is there something that we can plan? Maybe just have a wall between the food, but you were saying connecting, having a footpath going to Food Lion, but that's just my concern, having that foot traffic to the Food Lion Center, this just concerns me.
When you're out there, as all of you know, you're in the county, you're in the city, you're in the county, you're in the city, you're in the county. There's nothing from the outside of Merritt Mill that gets you down the street and down to the Food Lion on a sidewalk. It just isn't.
No, it isn't.
When we did come up originally with some of the plans and past and things like that, we were trying to find a way to find the connectivity to the places without the easiest path being through the woods to the back of, because that's just a problem right there. So when we bring people back into the room again, if there is any way that we can look around that corner to find, what's the mayor call it? Wayfinding. Go this way. If you're going to the grocery store, go this way. If there's any way that the community, if it is going to be low income, and there are going to be people who do not have access to cars, and this is because this is what we have in Salisbury, this is what we've approved. If it means they're going to walk, then we have to figure out, as we have had to figure out at Pemberton Apartments, how to get to Pemberton School without it being such a struggle. Then we need to get together with these people, with this group of people, and say, let's fix this now before we have to go move a homeless encampment, before somebody's walking back with a gallon of milk from the Food Lion and it gets taken and you've got to watch it sitting out your back door. Let's try and do that now at this process, instead of having to go back later and having to assign police officers to it. I think that's what you're asking.
There's already, I live in the other building, another homeowner was saying that she has seen people doing the sex act back there. So just makes you a little concerned, especially living on the first floor. So, yes, if we can have that.
It would not be a bad
discussed
idea if
plan.
somebody from the police department was there and they could induce the environmental law enforcement that we're supposed to be wrapping our hands around when it comes to these developments as well.
I think the other thing that you were mentioning is we've handled that before with the sidewalk as being part of the project, like the one up by Dagsboro Road, where we've made a connectivity that's strictly on the sidewalks where they're putting the sidewalk in. And we had a long discussion at the planning and zoning about that, and that was able to be worked out. So I think if we go in with that concept that Because it happens all over. It happens in my development. It happens between Canal Woods and the village of Tony Tank Creek. There's a, you know, that's the shortest distance between 2 points, is a straight line.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, something that we deal with, so. But I think if we can, as Mr. Ireton points out, if we can give them a reasonable access, then I think we're ahead of the game. I think everybody wins.
I just wanted to note one thing, which is that it is correct, we won't have an HOA here because it'll be rental, but we do have an established management company, an award-winning management company that will be there in the clubhouse. The phone number will be on the sign out at Merritt Mill. To whatever it's worth for you, if it gives you any comfort, you could walk over over that clubhouse, find management staff. If there's an issue, you can raise it directly with them because they'll be there, so.
So who's the management company if you don't?
It's Penrose.
I know.
Yeah.
What's the other project you've done in town?
It's now called Stone Grove Crossing, which was it's the
Yeah.
redevelopment of, half of the public housing units over Fifth Street.
Some stuff during that history in my mind is gone,
Right.
but I know it's back there
Good.
somewhere.
Any other questions?
No.
We appreciate you coming
Yes.
now, so that we can, when it comes to us in planning and zoning, we know what to ask, and
Yes, we know.
And thank you for the
This is why we wanted to
presentation.
do this. We really appreciate your feedback and your input.
thank you.
Thanks for the
Thanks very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, next up, we have the Chop Tank Electric annexation. Mr. Holland and Mr. Jacoby, come on up. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Good to see
I'm
you.
Mike Hickson, and with me tonight is Bob Belkey. He is a vice president of Chop Tank, and indeed the person who oversaw, I think, the acquisition of the property and certainly the construction of the building and other facilities that are out there. So he probably knows more than anyone else about that.
Just about that.
Just Bill?
Good afternoon.
Hold on a
This
second.
is,
Oh, yeah, you have to,
Push the microphone.
just, there you go.
Thanks, Craig.
See, we have notes, you don't have a note, so please speak into the mic, so.
I'll bring mine next time.
You can borrow my note. Okay, Bill, why don't you start us off?
sure, good afternoon. This is the introduction phase of the Chop Tank Walson Switch Road annexation. The reason we're here is me to introduce this, to provide you some brief information and background. And I asked Mr. Belkey and Mr. Hickson to join me up here if you had any specific questions or information you needed from them. This annexation started back in 2003 when a pre-annexation agreement was signed with the property owner then. This pre-annexation, it allowed the extension of existing utilities to go outside the city corporate limits to serve the property prior to annexation. The condition of the agreement is once the facility was built, constructed, and connected to the water and sewer, that they would apply for annexation if they've done. The property is approximately 40.5 acres. If you've driven by there in the last couple of years, you see a brand-new, modern facility, employs a lot of people, and they serve, so I guess it's a regional site. Back in July of this year, the Planning Commission forwarded a favorable recommendation to amend the zoning code to add two definitions, one which was a public utility operations center and a solar farm. This was approved by the city council in August of this year. All this information has been forwarded to Chris Jakubiak, so he can be working on the agreement, the annexation plan, the annexation agreement, and that's pretty much all I have. And again, I'm here to get the council's approval to keep moving this forward.
Questions? We have no questions. Consensus to move forward? We essentially, we discussed this a few times. Thank you, good luck.
Great.
So now the next step is,
Mr. Jakubiak should be contacting Mr. Hickson to work on the annexation plan, the annexation agreement.
and then it goes to,
And once we get that package put together, and I start putting the whole package together, then it will come back to the city council to get their approval for the annexation agreement. This also has to go back to the planning commission and be approved by both the city and the county because
Right.
of the
Right,
the
that's
zoning
was,
change.
yeah, it was just, that's why I asked the question. Yeah, it's gotta go back because of the relationship.
And we asked for some amendments to the city's zoning ordinance so that when we're annexed, we don't become a legal non-conforming use, which carries problems with it,
Yeah.
with a large investment in the property.
Good move to do it before. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Is the chief here yet?
Yes, she
She's out
was.
in the hall.
Can we get the chief and we'll,
Looking at the clock up there and go back an hour.
You want me to go change it?
no, because I tried that once.
You can do it.
I was just, it didn't move when it was not good. I think it was last year, actually. Oh, okay. Well, let's go to, let's go to the chief.
Don't jump ahead.
Come on up, chief.
I didn't want them to jump ahead.
How are you?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
Wonderful.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So you have a request for us.
I do, sir. Several months ago, one of our animal control vehicles was sitting parked. Our officer was handling an animal call, and an individual struck our vehicle, crashed into our vehicle, and then fled the scene. This had created damage in excess of what it would cost to repair the 2009 Ford F-150 that we had been operating. So we are requesting to take the proceeds from the insurance adjustment on this vehicle, and we're requesting to add that to our police services vehicle account, and we will use that to purchase a new vehicle.
Okay, did we get the guy?
We did not, sir,
He got away.
so far.
We have to get him.
We do. I am in full agreement.
And then hopefully he would have insurance. No, the odds of him having insurance are probably very, very thin. Okay, questions for the chief? How much is it gonna cost, do you think?
Approximately $28,000 for a new vehicle.
You gotta catch him. Okay,
Yes, sir.
all right, if we have consensus to go forward?
Yes.
Okay, we have consensus. Thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Is it warm in here, or is it me?
It is one.
Okay,
You guys.
where are we? All right, we have a discussion on the salary review proposal that was presented to us 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks?
3
Two-
weeks.
3 weeks ago. Who would like to start? Mr. Ireton?
No, because I always play my hand out first, and then you all react.
That's why I'm
I have
pulling on you.
nothing to say, and I have plenty to say, and a proposal, and a reason why, but I'm gonna let you all go first.
Okay. Come on, somebody, I've already, you know my position, so.
Well, and I'll go back to, what I said a few weeks ago was, if you're hiring somebody to run a $58 million corporation, how much would you pay the CEO of a corporation? So I think that brings it down to, the time that we are now, and not just now, because it's not gonna happen now, but, anything like this, we're thinking, 5, 10, 15 years down the road in successive elections that none of us are probably gonna be involved in.
Because we're too old.
Yeah.
I just
You know,
wondered.
It's not, this is a discussion that, when I think about, it's not about today. This is about in the future and what we're expecting of the mayor, what the job has in the past 15 to 20 years turned into. And I know, Mr. Ireton did it for 6 years, and how he put the time in.
How he ate.
How you even had time to do anything, working as a teacher and then really working full-time as a mayor. So, I mean, it's, I certainly believe it needs to be more than 25,000. Is it 75? Well, I think that's what we're here to discuss today, but I think it's gonna be, in my mind, probably at least somewhere in the 50 to 60 range. That's my thought.
I would agree with Mayor, with at least a $25,000 increase, not a $50,000 increase to $75,000. That's just my spend, taxpayers' money. Having some issues with that, but I do agree that he does need an increase for the work that he does.
Mr. Ireton?
Well, I'm not disagreeing with my counterparts, but I'm saying that this is not a corporation. It's a provider of a service. It's nice to be in the black, and we always are, because it's mandated. So there's not this idea that we are returning money to stockholders. When we return money to stockholders, it's in that the street got paved or the snow got removed. I'm not disagreeing with Councilman Heath. Council President Heath the other day said if a businessman wants to run for mayor and has a family, if anybody wants to run for mayor and has a family, historically we have been a city with a mayor that was a businessman. That ended a little over 20 years ago. We already have too much money in our politics, especially in the case of candidates that take a strong position on particular issues. Special interest groups have spent upwards of $250,000 in elections in this city in the last 20 years. And that's too much, even with the $250 cap. A $75,000 a year job is going to attract $75,000 a year campaign contributions. The low salary, though I know it needs to go up, reflects the need for people who are invested in the city, not people who see it as a gig. Yes, it was incredibly hard to do what I did for 6 years. And I grumbled about it, and I filled out my taxes and went ahead and tried to do the best job that I could do. We have provided a public information officer for the mayor's office. We have provided a second city administrator for the mayor's office. We have provided a visitor center and staff for that visitor center, and we have provided an arts and entertainment director for this city. Now, I did all of those things myself. Either we're going to provide the apparatus to do all the things that would be worth $75,000, or we're going to ask somebody who's doing it to be paid $75,000. But we cannot, taxpayer-wise, do both. I suggested when we were together last time that we definitely move it up, and I am willing to present a scale as to how that happens. And I didn't do it just, well, this looks good, because we can spend $750,000 on bike paths, but if we raised our salaries $3,000, there'd be hell to pay. We know that that's just the way this works when it comes to people in politics getting paid. So using Salisbury, Frederick, Wycomico County, Cumberland, Hagerstown, Dover, Ocean City, Cambridge, Easton, and Baltimore, which is what the committee did, I came up with a slow increase over time, both to the mayors and to the city council president and to the city council members. I know that this is a different age, and Councilman Boda and I had this conversation where I should have been looking for the thing to clean the drains. I was having a conversation with him up north. Facebook and Twitter and Instagram are not a service that we provide to citizens. It is a way to communicate with citizens, and certainly it has enhanced our ability to quickly deal with issues that people may have, or concerns or thoughts. I think the chickens came out of Facebook, and then ducks. I got you to smile, I'm so happy. But our job is water coming out of the tap. So I do believe that we are moving from an older age to a newer age. But given what the other places are doing with the amount of people they have and the budget they have, public service is public service. And if there was any inkling that we were doing it for a profit when we got involved in it, or doing it to do well, or doing it to even augment, the incomes that we have, that would be wrong. We didn't do it for those reasons. I suggested last time the 32, 16, and 13 in 2019, and I would suggest then again in another 4 years it goes to 35, 16, and 13, and then in 4 more years after that, in 2027, it goes to 37,000, 18 for the city council president, and 15 for the city council members. It's funny, some of these have a really high mayor salary, and then it's like $2,200 for a city council president. But some of them have, when you take a look at Hagerstown, that's 40,000 people, that's about 6 more than we have, a budget that's double ours, double 2.5 times ours, and the mayor's $28,000 and considered part-time, council people are 8,000. I worry that if we make it a high number, it invites the things that come with high number salaries in politics. The political situation in Salisbury has changed so much since my teens. And with the transientness of the population, we're going to agree to do another apartment complex here that will be transient. And where we used to walk to every door, it's now sliced and diced down to just the people who go. And when we take a look at that particular annexation that was on the table tonight, that's going to make things like redoing councilmatic districts very difficult, because it isn't contiguous to anything except the council district that it's in and the road, which we can't use to link it to the other one. I say that because if a higher salary for all of us meant a higher turnout, then I could see it. But I don't think it reflects that. It doesn't seem to in municipal elections throughout the country. But again, it's not a corporation. It provides a service. And if it was a corporation, I guess we're trying to impress our stakeholders. The mayor calls them stakeholders. I call them stakeholders. But they're not really. They actually pay in instead of us paying out to them. And in a perfect world, the people that we would provide the service to would make the money, not the people who are investing in the corporation to begin with. That's not the way it works. So I didn't want to disagree with the committee too much out loud, because there's such incredible people on that committee. But I don't believe that they're seeing what the job really is, and it's public service. And in the end, public service doesn't pay. And in my opinion, it shouldn't all that much. But I am willing to make a suggestion that it can go forward over the next 12 years.
I have a question regarding that. Since there is a stipulation, can we, Mr.
Or do we have to
Tillman,
wait for another
do we have to
commission?
wait for another, yeah.
Yeah.
In other words, we can't, I don't believe that we have the authority to put out, because the council that's ever in power at that time, every 4 years has to have a salary review. We can't bind them to an increase, can we?
You couldn't bind them to anything.
See,
That's,
Could we make a suggestion to that particular committee as it comes along that we had just on a voice vote had suggested that this is where we go?
you can't, it just wouldn't bind. if
It
you
wouldn't
try
bind
to.
anybody.
wouldn't
Okay.
The future
And I don't
council.
have any problem. I don't have any
And-
problem with that.
I would also like just to make a couple of comments, because I hear what you're saying, but let me throw a twist to it. The government, the city of Salisbury is a nonprofit, isn't it? If you look at the salaries of the nonprofits in the area, and the reason the salaries of the nonprofits for a person who would have a business or a nonprofit that has a budget of approximately $50 million would certainly not be at $25,000, $30,000, or $40,000 or $50,000. Yet, the responsibility of that individual, the equivalent of our mayor, is responsible for containing the costs of those individuals who it affects, because they can't raise money through taxation. They have other mechanisms, and they also have to control their expenses very closely. So I think that while I agree with you that we provide a service, well, so do the nonprofits, and I think that there's a connectivity there that is someplace around what the number was that was presented by the committee. I just, again, and I don't want to be, I'm going to take 2 seconds because I don't want to be repetitive. I've already stated my position. The responsibility that the mayor has and the accountability that he has, because you know better than anybody else, the buck stops in that office. I don't care who's working in downtown, who's the, no disrespect, the city administrators, the city administrators. When it hits the fan, the mayor is the one that takes the heat. And it should be, rightfully so. But because he takes the heat, he should be compensated for that responsibility. And I'll leave it at that. So is there a proposal, having said that, and is there a proposal that we can talk about putting forward? Well, is there consensus that the mayor's salary has to be increased?
I mean, I support that there needs to be an increase.
Okay, so we all agree that it has to be increased. So let's, somebody put a number out there and let's see if we
Well,
can
let me
get
ask a
consensus.
question. The only two places in Maryland that have essentially agreed to what you're suggesting are Frederick and Baltimore. Now, Frederick has double the number of people we have and 2.5 times our budget, and that mayor is $90,000. Baltimore City, I can't do the math on anything that big.
Well, that includes-
Though their council people make
Yeah.
make 72.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe I could support it if we were paying for it with the other services that we have provided the mayor's office through the budgetary process. That's not what you asked, and I apologize. What you asked for is, do we
I'm
have a
still waiting.
proposal? Well, I'm not gonna say $35,000 to have all of you say no in front of that camera when we already know you're not gonna support $35,000, so.
45?
Do I hear 50?
I said 50.
Yeah, but I just,
If you're gonna go 45,
doesn't-
you might as well go 50.
yeah.
Well, even if we go outside of Maryland and we look at Dover, Dover is, they've got a major university there. They're about the same size, a little bit bigger than us. They're the central economic hub. You gotta look at, it's more than just 33,000 people that live in the city of Salisbury. We become a city of over 100 to 150,000 during the day of people who work here, shop here, travel through here.
Yeah.
How many police departments around the country that have 33,000 residents that have 100 police officers? Not many. So I think that's a different dynamic as being an economic hub. With the people that live around Salisbury, you're looking at 60-some thousand. All those people are in and out of our city all day long. I mean, it's more than just, it's a different situation.
Yet they're not paying for it.
Yeah, that aren't paying,
And if you use the mayor's, what his usual discussion area is really not even the county, it's the metro area. So, I mean,
which also.
the mayor of
metro area
Salisbury is not
includes-
the mayor of Seaford, is not the mayor of,
You have people from Lower
Rehoboth
Delaware
Beach.
that work in Salisbury, and
Right.
a lot of them do their shopping in Salisbury. Their doctor appointments, a lot of them are, it's more than just who lives here. Though those are the ones who choose who the mayor is. So, again, it's more than just, I think what's on paper doesn't really tell the whole story. So, I mean, for me, really, for the next, which, we're talking 2 years from now, which would be from 2019 to 2023, that's the time frame that we're looking at of whoever that mayor is, whether it's this mayor or whether it's somebody else. What should we pay that particular mayor? And maybe in that time frame, to me, like I said at the beginning, it's between 50 and 60 is where I think it should be at the minimum. But, and that's me coming down from where I really think it should be 75,000. I'm trying to meet Mr. Ireton halfway. Because I love you and you're a great guy.
And I was worth more for 6 years, right?
You were, absolutely.
You were underpaid.
And if one
I don't
thing I
believe
did,
that.
even though we didn't always agree on
I
everything.
don't believe that.
I really felt and believed you should
I know.
have been paid in that range.
In the grand scheme of things, when I used to sit at the table with all the department heads, there's $1.5 million worth of department heads sitting right there. There's more money now sitting there as well. Yes, the buck stops at the mayor's office, but the day-to-day operations of that police department, the day-to-day operations of that fire department, the day-to-day operations of that. Now, it was a wonderful intellectual experience to be able to find out about crime
And-
stats and
yeah.
what a wastewater treatment plant looks like.
But who's making the ultimate decision to hire that person? Who's making the
Well, a
ultimate
lot of
decision?
people who only make $10,000 a year.
But, the
I'm just
chief of
trying,
police,
I was trying to see if I can get it to smile.
You have that luxury of saying, I no longer want this chief of police.
Right.
So from that perspective, you've got someone who makes a significant amount of money less than that person in that job who's making the decision on whether they should have a job or not. Even if you're someone who's managing people who are making that amount of money,
I agree with you.
I mean,
I agree with you, but it's not the same
when it comes to people in politics. It's not. And I know,
So what's
and
the
I'm not
difference
saying it's
between-
right or
what-
wrong.
What about the nonprofits that do the same thing?
Again, all the nonprofit people I know are people who are literally out of the goodness of their heart and the intestinal fortitude they have with the issues that they love. The reason I couldn't really support it, and I don't know whether or not, is that when we look at the money that we've spent, and I have supported every dime of it, so I don't want anybody who's watching at home or the mayor who's watching in his office to think, well, the amount of increase in the mayor's office over the last 3 years has been substantial, the amount of money that we spend there. And if we're going to hire people, a second city administrator, a visitor center, and the staff to go in there, the business development specialist, the arts and entertainment director, that's what the mayor's job is twofold. It's whack-a-mole on the bottom of little things every day, but it's also about a bigger, larger vision for things to happen. And I say this with all the respect in the world. We love and adore this mayor, but we cannot decide that we're going to pay all the rest of the mayors from here on out based on this performance. So I could go up to 37 in 2019. The council president's 18. The council members are 15. And that is still to the public a $12,000 raise. I know that doesn't support a family, but there are a lot of people who live in the city who do support a family on $37,000 a year.
But they don't have the responsibility of the mayor.
I wouldn't disagree, but I would say raising children and getting to work every day is just as important.
Oh, I'm not saying it's
I
just
know
as
you're not.
important.
I'm just-
I'm just saying it's not the same. Okay,
Do you want me to
So-
make a motion so that we can move forward?
well, it's just a discussion, so make a proposal and then we'll see if we have consensus.
And I think and I'm gonna disagree with you on the council salaries, I think they should go with what they proposed, that's just my opinion.
What did they propose? Do you remember?
I don't even remember.
An 18% increase.
And what was that to, 13?
It was like 11,800
yeah.
or something for,
It was like $1,000
yeah, it was
more.
like 1,800 for, and
Yeah.
14. I would say maybe round it off, 15 for the president, 12 for the rest of the council. For that, I'm fine with. And then, okay, well, I'll make a proposal for the council salary to be 15 for the president, 12 for council members. At least, if everybody's okay with that, get that one out of the way. That might be the easy one.
Yeah, because he's running again next year. Okay.
You okay?
I'm fine, I just do
You
not
all right with
want
that, Jim?
a great leap.
All right, we got that one settled. Go to the next one.
Okay, so, I'll propose 50 for the mayor. And it's somewhere in the middle.
April?
I will propose 50 for the mayor as well. And the council increase, I will set to 12,015 for the president. I will.
No?
Let me ask the question. When was the last time that there was a raise given?
2000.
Send in the letter.
I wanna say it was in the letter.
2007?
I was gonna say 3 or 7.
Okay, that's 10 years.
How much was it doing it? It went to 25 for the mayor from less than 20, I think.
It was less than 20. It really doesn't matter.
15 to 25.
What really matters
Incrementally, it went in
is that
increments.
if you're
It
working.
did go in increments, so
Yeah.
that they did it without the recommendation
Um,
of the commission?
The last time, I'm thinking of the time that it was approved, when Mayor Tillman was here. Went from 15 to 25, and I'd have to pull it, I had it up, look it up.
And looking at 2017, that's 2 years with no increase. Who would work on any job that long with not a raise? Who would?
Teachers during the Great Recession for 6 straight years.
Yeah, well, that's teachers.
Well, it's the same,
Well, that's teachers. Their contract, is that in a contract for them? Okay, well, that's a contract, this is not a contract.
All right, so we have 50 with,
we all have to remember what we said when Hardy comes back.
Yeah,
Tell
I'm
them
writing
to
it down, I'm
watch-
writing
Write it
notes.
down.
I'm writing
Tell them to
notes.
watch
I
those
will,
messy
I
videos.
will, I will say this, I'm not gonna accept that, and I would suggest that we wait till Hardy gets back and
Okay,
we have another discussion,
okay.
because 50 to me is totally inadequate. And
So you saying it
I
should
have
be
to
more?
vote no, but if I vote no, that kills it.
So you just wanted me to make a motion to table it till the next work session?
Yeah, just put on
Make
there
a
That's
motion
fine.
to table it to the next
That's
work
fine.
session.
when Hardy gets back.
I'll send you I'll send to everybody what was done last.
Okay.
Okay,
I can't even look online.
okay,
Okay, that's fine.
And then we'll get the information, the exact numbers and dates for that.
That's fine. It's fair.
The last thing that I want to go over is suggested dates for next year. You're already talking about.
Oh, wow, already, yeah.
The only thing that is not on here, which I will try to get out, I'll talk with the mayor about the budget, because what I want to do is lock in the dates of the budget, like we did last year. The budget will be done in 4 sessions again, maybe a 5th session if we have an issue, a wrap-up. But there'll be 4 four-hour sessions with the financial condition of the city as the first. Get the line items that Mr. Ireton has suggested last year before we really get into it. And then the CIP in its normal position. And then we'll take it from there. And I'll try to get some dates. I'll sit with Mrs. Nichols when we find out where you are timing-wise with the budget. We'll leave a little bit of leeway there. So does anyone have any issues? I looked at this and I don't see any issues currently. We've left out the fifth Monday, at least based on my calendar, we have. So, and I don't think Mrs. Nichols would make a mistake like that, so. But all the rest of them look fine to me. The holidays, the Tuesday meetings on holidays, or after holidays, I should say.
Meeting on Christmas Eve. Question.
We usually, yeah.
Now we're going
The
to
shopping day, Jack.
Do we have, the less shopping days, the better.
Sneeze last minute.
Do we have, do these reflect the dates for the MML?
Yes, she got canceled on
Yeah,
that.
June 25th would be canceled.
And that is set? That's late.
No, it was early this year, they said, right? I can't remember.
MML.
It was
25th.
a lot earlier than this. Okay. If no one has any problems with this, let's publish it. Okay?
Yeah, no, everything looks good to me. I'm just.
All right.
Owen, if it would be possible, Mr. Council President, at some future date, could we revisit our newspapers issue? Only because.
Oh, yes.
Haven't
I know
seen
what
a
you're
single
saying.
one since those guys were here. I mean, literally, have not seen a single one. So I just want to find out whether that was by design or,
I haven't heard any complaints.
I haven't
I have
heard any
not
complaints, but I haven't seen any at all.
Oh, no, they're still putting them
Are
out.
they still
Oh,
putting them
yeah,
out?
I have not had one phone call.
Okay. I just wanted to revisit with you all and find out what you all were hearing. and
I
find
have
out.
not had one. My buddy hasn't called me, and
And then if we could, we got one of these, and I thought we were gonna do it monthly, and I don't know whether or not that's something we get in one of the other, but an update on the number of people who are taking advantage of our dropping of the rates.
That was an email today.
I know there was it today?
There was an email.
I know there were three. There were three new houses that were built on it, and
Yeah, I'll get you that.
I was trying to figure out whether or not we expected there to be 3,300 or 3. Anything's better than 0, but I wanted to find out if we could have a discussion as to whether or not that was necessarily worth the drop if only 3. And
Gotcha.
those were single-family homes, and those are single-family homes very close to this annexation we were talking about tonight, so I just thought we should maybe talk about it again.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else?
Mr. Heath, were
Yes.
you going to discuss the December 26th meeting this year? On a Monday?
I think I know the answer to that. Is there any objection to canceling the 26th meeting?
Oh, no.
Is there anything, let me ask this, is there anything that the clerk is finding that is waiting on second, is that a work session? No, it's a
It's a
regular.
meeting,
Is
Regular
there
meeting.
anything that's been sitting,
Looking at the agenda, I didn't see
didn't
anything.
say anything?
No.
not right now.
And if there happens to be something, we can always have a special meeting if there's something that needs
That
I just-
Monday
before the work, after the work session.
The symbolism of talking about raising our pay and canceling meetings is, I don't know if is it lost on me?
It's lost on me.
Okay, all right.
With that, I'd like to recognize our delegate, Carl Anderson. Carl. If there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
You said it was hang.